You want to know why your roof costs as much as it does? I see homeowners complaining about bids they're getting from roofing contractors saying, hey, how come roofers are so greedy? $20,000 for the roof when I can go to local Home Depot and buy shingles for $3, $4, $5,000. They're so greedy. They charge me so much. Let me give you a roofer's perspective. If a roofer does a couple hundred roofs per year, so let's say 200 roofs a year, it's about 3-4 roofs per week. So he's a full-time roofing contractor. He has to have a couple people in the office. So he has to have someone to answer phone calls, file permits, deal with the accounting, paperwork, running a business, right? So he has to pay the rent, at the very least $3,000. It's not like running a restaurant when you have to pay $20,000 a month, but still, a couple $1,000s for rent. He has to be well insured, because in the roofing industry you have to have general liability insurance, work comp insurance, which is like 50% from your labor. You have to make sure everybody who's going on top of the roofs, they're protected. If someone gets injured, he's not going to go out of business. He has to pay different trainings, all of that stuff. So if he has 2-3 employees in the office, I'm not talking about laborers, I'm not talking about the crew who are actually going to do the job. I'm talking about someone in the office answering phone calls, filing permits, and managing projects. Your customer service people. That's going to be 10, 15,000 just in salaries per month, just for office overhead. Then you have rent, then you have insurances, then you have vehicles. Everything is expensive. So average roofing company, which is $2-3 million business, gonna pay at least $50,000-$60,000 a month just in overhead before we even touch the roofing projects. So think about break-even point. So for you, it might sound expensive, but they cannot charge you for their overhead. They cannot charge you for their office. They cannot charge you for their insurance costs and insurance audits and all of that, or their training. So they have to build their overhead in the cost of the job. So if you are getting estimates right now from multiple roofers, roofing is very, very competitive industry. Usually it's about 30% of the cost goes towards shingles, towards materials. Another 30% to cover the crew, to pay laborers, people who actually work with their hands and install it. The rest, 30, 35, 40%, going to cover your overhead. It's called gross profit. So you'll have to cover your office expenses. You have to indirect cost that roofing contractor deals. But at the end of the day, the net profit is actually not that high. So people think about roofers as very, very greedy. If someone runs a $3 million company, at the end of the year, they're probably making $300,000-$400,000, which is, for the liability and the risk they take, it's very reasonable. It's very similar to restaurant business, like running your McDonald's or Papa John's franchise, so on. So next time you get estimates, or if you're getting estimates right now from 3-4 roofers, one thing is for sure: roofing prices never go down. So if you get 3-4 estimates, that's market price. Your roofers are not greedy. Also, materials have been rising for the past 10-15 years, and they're still rising today. So shingles, accessories cost double, maybe even triple what they were 10 years ago. Everything is getting pricier. Labor is also getting way more expensive than it used to be. People don't want to get in roofing anymore. So we have to charge and pass it to the consumer. So your roofers are not greedy. They have to adapt to market conditions that they deal with. They're buying trucks, they're buying equipment. Trucks double the cost. Everything else is getting more pricey for them. So they have to pass the cost to their consumers. So if you are getting estimates, so let's say you get estimate for 20,000, 21, 22, go with your gut, do your research, make sure you go to proper websites to check if it's a reputable contractor in front of you, so you don't have to deal with his bankruptcies later, or him going out of business and ghosting you, because that also takes place. 80% of roofing contractors go out of business within 2 years, even though who charge plenty. Because think about this: if they're charging if they have to make $50,000-$60,000 to cover their overhead, it has to come from somewhere. And those who don't charge enough go out of business fastest. So if you, the homeowner, be actually very careful with those who don't charge enough. I'll give you one story. I was meeting contractor out of South Carolina last month, and he shared the story with me. He was frustrated because he has one competitor who was underbidding his jobs. He said, Dimitri, I know my profit margins are on point. I'm making like 30% profit margins, gross profit margin. I'm barely staying alive. I'm not making enough money. And he could not understand how this one company always were able to provide cheaper quote until a couple of years later, that company went out of business. And truth came out, they were in debt. They could not pay their suppliers millions of dollars. They could not pay their crews. They could not pay their sales guys. They filed bankruptcy and they folded. So for years, many thought like, oh, they're a good company, big company, and we have to compete with them. They don't have to compete with them, and you don't have to. And please don't go with the cheapest bid, because cheapest contractors are usually gets in trouble faster and becomes a statistic. So go with the middle towards the top, but more than anything, do your research. You know where to find a good contractor. If you need my help, comment below, check my website, and I'll make a recommendation. I don't give bad recommendations when it comes to roofing. So comment below what you think about this topic.